introduction, but yeah, S/4HANA Cloud, it's software as a service. SAP's hosting the infrastructure, the platform, the software. Significant because you don't have to have the data centers, all the technical expertise in-house to run this. SAP does it all for you. Try to summarize here since I lost a few minutes. But so that's a high level, like I said, software as a service. Hopefully everybody could hear me. The whole thing with S/4HANA Cloud too is it's a new user experience. So whether you're an existing SAP customer on this call or you're new to, you're running some other software, it's a very visual, powerful, brand new modern user experience. It's app driven. We think of apps. We of course think of our smart devices where we have apps downloaded under our favorites, under our groups for easy access, whether it's doing social media, shopping, e-commerce, playing games, whatever it may be. It's app driven, both for transactional as well as analytical processing. One thing I want to highlight, huge thing, and keep these in the back of your mind as we go through the presentation, is the whole concept of you now have a single platform where you can not only do the transactional processing, but you could do the analytical processing all within this cloud service. So you could do both the OLTP and the OLAP, transactional analytics, same software within this URL. That's significant because in the past, we've had to have business warehouses or outside data warehouses where we had to extract and transform and load the data into that and build these complex cubes, entity relationships, views, and then we had to have third-party types of devices that, like a business objects or a Tableau or a Click or some type of third-party tool to consume those views or that data. You don't have to do that anymore with this cloud product. It's all embedded within this application, within the software. And like I said, that's significant because ultimately you get the power of that cloud computing with the real-time data, real-time insight, as well as hopefully at a cheaper cost to your organization since you don't require the whole infrastructure and platform support. Keep in mind real-time. Like I said, your analytics are real-time. You make transactions, you post them. You could access, you have inbound interfaces. You refresh these analytics that we're going to talk about, and it's real-time updates. Very intuitive, easy to use, informative. The whole idea is it's KPI-driven, key performance indicators. You can discover patterns, trends, and outliers to hopefully get insight into your business or the key items that hopefully drive value for your business. The last thing I want to mention before we dive into the actual true presentation is the whole thing with S/4HANA Cloud is it's supposed to be transformative, specifically digital transformation. So the popular thing over the last few years has been, for example, e-commerce. You think of e-commerce as digital. You think of social media as digital. Those have become very powerful factors in our world and the way we communicate with others and do business. But the new things that have, they're not necessarily new, but they've been evolving and gained a lot of traction over the last few years. You start hearing about Internet of Things, connected devices. And we're talking, as the next few years grow, we're talking about billions and billions of connected devices and networks that connect networks, people, and the business and the devices. Sensors are going to be on these devices that feed data. You now have a digital type of solution where you can get all that data into this environment real time and get real-time analytics, real-time information. That's a huge value driver. Last thing I want to keep in mind is you've been hearing about a lot of things about machine learning. SAP already delivers within the S/4HANA Cloud some machine learning algorithms. Ultimately, this is going to head into what's called deep learning. Deep learning is a lot more powerful than machine learning, which starts crossing into artificial intelligence. I don't know how much people have been reading about it, but the artificial intelligence is going to drive huge value over the next few years. If you could get that data into this type of S/4HANA Cloud or into any type of software that can interpret and understand the data, there could be so much value there. So I just want to keep that in mind, that this is very digital transformative, And I believe that the companies that can embrace this, whether it's through S/4HANA Cloud or something else, can deliver a lot of value to their users, as well as their customers, their suppliers, and their whole partnership with everybody. So keep that in mind about the digital transformation. All right, so let's get going into the actual embedded analytics. So yeah, embedded analytics, these are analytics that, like I said, they're integrated directly in the software. You don't have to go into a separate system, a separate instance. It's all in one tenant. So the first one, there's tiles. Think of tiles or apps. There's graphical reports. There's overview apps, and then there's multidimensional types of apps. So the whole idea with these apps, if you look at the screen, they catch your eye. They get your attention. They want you to do something called insight to action, where something catches your eye, and you say, you know what? Ooh, I better drill into that. I want to take some type of action. So that's the whole idea, is you could take something, whether maybe there or no action. Maybe you see that things are running fine. I don't have to take an action. Or maybe something's in red or yellow, and it says, you know what? I better drill in that and see what's going on with my business. If you notice, easy to look at. Numbers are large, different colors, different fonts. Some of the tiles can not only have numbers or percentages or colors or different fonts, but they can maybe have some key metrics within them as well. Maybe for a customer item, you could have maybe like your top 3 customers are embedded in that tile or that app that you could see visually and say, ooh, customer A has $50 million of outstanding receivables, and I better drill in there and see what's going on. Very time-based. They allow you to understand the KPI behavior. You could look at actual versus targets. So that's if you go forward here, might be a little bit of a delay. And one thing that's really cool with all this analytics as well is all of these applications or these apps that SAP is delivering, these are all optimized and they're all built for mobile use as well. So assuming, of course, you have the mobile platform and the infrastructure in place, your users can log in and they could get these apps, they could save them on their dashboard, and then they could go into their mobile app and they could pull these applications real time. So you could be, whether you're in the office, out of the office, sitting at home, wherever you may be, you could look at these applications real time and see what's going on with your KPI or your KPIs. So like I said, these are all mobile enabled because the whole idea is that people are on the go, people are always moving, people aren't constrained to their desks. Okay, so you have the application or the tile, and you want to take some type of action. So what you do is you drill into the application, and immediately when you drill in, you'll see you have these very powerful deep visualizations. And you could take this data and you could put it into, probably about 15 plus different graphical visualizations, bar charts, pie charts, donut charts, heat maps, whatever it may be. And, if you depend on the visualization of the chart or the graph, you can tell a different story. But that's the whole idea is, you could get a different story for that KPI. And then you could filter on, there's all these different filters. So, in this example, it talks about like sales volume. You could look at your top 10 customers. You could look at maybe your salespeople by customer. You could look at sales organizations. You could look at, like I said, all these different sales divisions. You can look at everything within this KPI from a different point of view. Also within these apps, there's something called an Analysis Path framework. And the whole idea is that you're creating a graphical representation or a story on the fly. So when you drill into this KPI, you get an instant insight into things, but then you could basically build upon this framework. You could build a storyline. You could say, show me this KPI in a certain representation. Then keep drilling downwards, keep drilling this into a different type of representation. And the whole idea is you're telling a story about this KPI, real time. And this is delivered by SAP. There's some very basic setup, but it's delivered out of the box with this framework. But you can tell the story. And I was thinking about this. I was on a client, and the controller, they were trying to figure out, for example, we know cash flow is huge. So the quicker you could get cash in the door and put that cash to work, whether it's cash through working capital or compounding interest on that cash, the better you can manage that cash and have more cash in the door quicker, typically means a more successful business model. I was talking to the controller, and the hard thing was he was having a hard time understanding what are my receivables. There's a delay in getting, what are my customer receivables? What is 30, 60, 90? What's overdue? Where am I having collection issues? With these types of apps, when you have this story I was telling you about, this framework, I was thinking about it. You could go to this controller with one of these apps, and you could look at, say, customer receivables KPI. You could go to that controller, and real time, you could show him the story. You could show him different representations, different graphs to that customer, and he could slice and dice and view this in different means to take a really quick insight. And we're talking a matter of minutes, because you don't want to have to spend 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes going through this. If you could tell that story quicker and take an action quicker and go forward with an action item that can deliver value quicker, that's very valuable. So think of the analysis path framework. You have that ability to build that story very quickly on the fly. This is arguably one of my most favorite parts of what SAP is delivering. And by the way, with this S/4HANA Cloud, you're getting quarterly updates. I think what SAP is providing quarterly, as far as these embedded analytics, is, I think it's amazing. It's powerful, but you have these overview apps, and what these are is they're a central way to look at an analytics. So, for example, you have like a central cockpit, a central view for like purchasing, a central overview app for sales, collections, disputes, supplier management, quality management, manufacturing. So you have this, like I said, it's like a one-stop dashboard where you get a pulse or a health reading for your particular part of your organization. So like in this example, this is a screenshot of a purchasing overview app. So a purchasing manager, or maybe a head of a buyer's area, the head of the buyers, you could look really quick and you could see, you know what, how are my buyers doing as far as converting these RFQs to purchase recs and ultimately to purchase orders. You could get it graphically, you could get it numbers, you could get it by a timeline, but you could get, like I said, a real-time analysis to gauge the health of your organization. And each of these, you could drill in and see deeper detail, as I was mentioning earlier. Drill in to see, see what's behind the actual numbers. And like I said, you refresh this thing, and this thing gets updated. Like you said, if you want to update every second, every minute, every hour, whatever it may be, very valuable. And SAP, as I mentioned, quarterly is making this even more and more robust, adding more and more functionality. One thing I saw with SAP's most recent 1802 release, which started very impressive, is they have some very powerful MRP manufacturing apps that gauge supply demand, capacity planning, gauge like obsolescence, quality management. They have some brand new overview apps that in years past, I've seen organizations that have complex manufacturing that they've either had to build very intensive, capital intensive, very complicated models outside of their core ERP system so that people could get these types of metrics. Or I've even seen where they say, you know what, we're going to buy a third-party solution. And some of these third-party solutions are fabulous, but I mean, these could be multi-million-dollar investments that basically RFC into your SAP instance and hit your database, and then they build these visualizations to the RFC connection in this third-party application. SAP is giving you this now. Every quarter, this is getting more and more powerful. You don't have to have that third-party solution. You don't have to make those outside investments. It's all, like I said, your transactional and your analytical processing, it's all embedded within that same software. Very powerful stuff. All right, so let's see. The last type of KPI type of capability is something called multidimensional analysis. I'll mention this a couple times during the presentation, but these are built on something called CDS views, core data services views, which are virtual views that sit on top of the database layer. And what happens is you drill into these apps and you instantly get this pivot table. So you have all these fields on the left side of the screen, and all you have to do is you drag and drop to columns or rows. Very quick, very convenient. Drag and drop, and you can get all these slice and dicing of your data. I mean, you're only constrained by your imagination or how you want to see the data. And then as you slice and dice these pivot tables, I mean, you could either look at, you get numerical representations, or within that, you could actually go to a graphical representation very easily on the fly, or you could download to Excel, whatever it may be. Some people like numbers, some people like graphs, some people just like to download to Excel and slice and dice it their way. But it gives you a very good flexibility to pull in basically any basic key figure you could imagine that's within your instance, any basic key figure, any type of characteristic to slice and dice in a pivot table view. Okay, I'm going to keep moving here. And then the last thing is with the multidimensional application. You think of like, I'm thinking, so obviously my career's been in SAP, but you know, you used to have to, in the traditional instance, you would have to open multiple sessions. So you could drill, you know, have a report. Maybe you could even drill into the details somewhat, but sometimes you had to open multiple instances up to get a deeper view into maybe what makes up that number. Well, here, you can actually jump into other apps like transactional apps, reporting apps, even master data apps. You could jump directly into those apps from this particular tile or application, and you could get even better insight into what makes up that number or that key figure. So I believe in a lot of instances with what SAP is delivering what's out there now and what they're delivering on their roadmap every quarter, it's probably most people are going to get almost like an out of the box, to use these apps out of the box and get a lot of value. But SAP offers you a very simplistic way to extend these apps. It's called in-app extensibility, or you're extending them directly within the software application itself. So we'll talk about extend the tiles. So these applications, tiles, smart business applications, whatever you want to call them, it's very easy. You could drill into them, and you could get, we were talking about the graphical representation. You could filter down on customers, suppliers, whatever key figure you want. Well, there's a really cool feature in here that once you get to what's valuable for you as a user, down here within the screen, you could save each of these as a tile, or basically as their own little app. So you save this as a tile or as your own app, and then you basically name it. You could do some simple customization of it for your own use. Say you specify like a tolerance. You know, if it hits this dollar or this threshold, you know, give me a red or a yellow or whatever it may be. And then all you have to do is you basically save it, and instantly this thing appears, this new, brand new, you just create a tile or an app on the fly that is unique to just your user. And you could go right in this and keep customizing it. You know, as you get smarter with this, as you get to understand the data better, you could update this on the fly. You could delete it. You could re-add it. Very easy. I mean, this is something you could do on the fly in a matter of minutes. So this is a very simplistic in-app extensibility. But yeah, you could basically take a core tile and basically customize it as you need it on the fly. So a second means is we'll call it custom tile development, but here's the thing is it really isn't development. You do not have to be like a UI5 deep developer. You don't have to be no SQL. You don't have to know all these technical languages. You could actually create these KPIs or these tiles pretty quickly on the fly. And what happens is SAP gives you tools within the analytics framework to create the KPI, create the evaluation, and then you associate all this to a brand new tile and publish it. Just some high-level screenshots that you could show. I mean, look at this first app. Create the KPI. You create your metric. You name it. You provide what's the goal of this. SAP provides the services because you have to have a front-end, back-end communication going back and forth. But SAP provides you all these services. They maintain all that. Like I said, this is very valuable because you don't have to worry about the infrastructure and the platform to communicate, the front end and the back end. SAP handles all that. It's very easy to find these services. You just associate this, this KPI to the service, and then you activate the KPI. And then you create the evaluation. You create, this is my look and feel. This is how my KPI is going to look. Is it going to be a percentage? Is it going to be a number driven? Is it going to, is it going to be based on, some type of underlying metric? Is it going to be based on some type of target or threshold? And like I said, this stuff is not stuff that's going to take days and days and days. Once you know your data, once you understand the infrastructure within this S/4HANA Cloud, in most instances you could do this in a matter of hours. And then the last thing you want to do is you create your KPI, you create your evaluation, and then you want to basically say, here's how my tile is going to look and feel. Do I want it just to look as a number, as a percentage? Do I want to create it as a dual type of tile with a number and maybe some cool little metric on the side? Do I want to make it look like just a simple type of bar? Do I want to make it look like a flow, like a waterfall flow? And then when you create how that's going to look and feel, you basically preview it, looks good, then you publish it. And once you publish it, it's available for use. And like I said, this does not take deep development experience or even deep functional experience. It's just knowing how the tool works and understand how to expose those underlying CDS views, which I will talk about a little bit here in a second. So as I mentioned, the CDS views, the core data services views, SAP, a very ingenious idea. They said, you know what, we don't want you to have to, go into the database directly. We don't want to have to, because that takes away performance. There's risk there. So what we're going to do is we're going to create these CDS views, which I was mentioning earlier, are virtual data models that sits on top of the database. SAP delivers thousands of these out of the box. You could, as a user, you could go in and search on these, and you could see by your functional area, sales, procurement, financial analysis, collections, whatever it may be, you could see these CDS views and see what SAP provides. I would say in most instances, people can look at these, and they're probably SAP is going to have what you need already there for you. And you can look and see, here's my fields, here's my characteristics, here's my length of my fields. So you look at these CDS views, and you could do queries off of it. So I'm thinking traditionally, like in SAP, like I said, that's my experience. But traditionally, people would use like the info set queries. We think of the squibbies. We think of all the, you have to know the table names, and you would join the tables, inner, outer joins, build those relationships, and then you basically push them out to the users. Well, cumbersome, kind of, it took a little deeper technical knowledge of the table structures and the tables. And then the whole idea, you had to be careful with that because you're calling the database directly, and that affects performance. With these new query type of engines, you could build these queries accessing these CDS views, which makes it much more powerful, and you're not going to affect performance as much because these CDS views are leveraged to take advantage of the HANA database, but also to take advantage of the whole underlying architecture, which are the powerful servers and the CPUs behind the scenes. And like I said, you create these queries that are calling these CDS views, and instantly your query gets this whole pivot table look and feel, this whole slicing and dicing, where you could get the key figure type of drag and drop pivot table. You could do the graphical representations I was mentioning earlier, download to Excel, but it gives you very good flexibility. And this is easy to use. I mean, anybody that has used Excel, even as a basic user or intermediate user, can use these with very little training. Okay, so query. Query is pretty easy, pretty basic. Report writing. Like I said, I'm abbreviating this, going kind of quick, but traditionally, I'm going to go back to SAP, but all software has this. you have like a report writing capability. Typically, this was reserved for what I would call more the functional to the development team. We think of like traditionally in SAP like ABAP reports. You know, you have to have a developer. I think of it like the report writer, report painter. I think of my old days. I mean, I was just at a client that heavily uses report writer, traditional tools. And the thing with that was, I mean, to even build a decent report, it's like every column, every row, you had to create sets. You would have to create either basic sets or multi-sets. And these sets were cumbersome. You had to know the data very well, intensively. But every row, every column was a set. And it just took hours and hours and sometimes days to build. And you had to do multiple iterations with your users to before you even move this into a production environment. Here, SAP gives you these basic these tiles, these tools, and like I said, the whole idea is these CDS views. You can look at these views and gain an understanding of what's in these views, and then you could basically connect to the service, and these entity relationships are built very quickly on the fly. And then you consume it, you preview these and then publish them directly within the application. You don't have to go outside the application to move things back and forth. And by definition, you have that drill down, as I was mentioning. That drill down capability is embedded within there to where you could drill into the line item detail, the master data, who did what. And then, like I said, you publish these and they're instantly available for immediate consumption. Oh, and then, yeah, I mean, like I said, with these reports, you get the, all the different graphical representations that SAP provides as standard. I talked about the Analysis Path Configurator. It's based on the CDS views. It's based on, you're only constrained by what your imagination, what you can see, but you could build your story on the fly for yourself or for executives, management, whoever needs to look at these to build your story to understand your KPI better. I mean, you can see. I mean, you start with this Analysis Path Configurator, this framework. You can start with a pie chart, then you could go into some type of vertical bar chart, then you could go into some type of either more complex chart. So the idea is you keep building that story to understand the KPI better. I talked about CDS views. I can't overemphasize how valuable these are, how powerful they are. And the cool thing with this, if you don't have a CDS view that's thousands and thousands out there, you could build these on your own. And like I said, you don't have to have that deep table because, like I said, you're not going into the table structure. You don't have to go into T001 and T001C, T00W, T001W, CEPC, all these tables. You don't have to go into all these tables and actually figure out the joins and figure out how this data, how this field is going to interact with this field. These CDS views are very simple. You could go in and you could expose really quickly my key figures. You can see the length, the type of characteristics that you want to build in this. And then it's really cool because when you build these as needed, you have on the left side basically all the fields you bring in, and then you can just drag and drop, hide it, set it as a totals field, as a text field. But these could be, I mean, once you get the hang of this stuff can be done in a few hours. It doesn't have to be deep development knowledge. You don't have to, it's not going to take days and days. In many cases, you can build these CDS views, customize them on the fly in a matter of hours. And then, of course, like I was mentioning, they're available for use in queries, reports, and ultimately, the whole idea is this is all embedded within that, the S/4HANA Cloud. You could expose these and use these in your real-time analytics. So I believe in a lot of cases, your S/4HANA Cloud, especially with the quarterly updates, the quarterly releases, you're going to have probably most things you're going to have, and it's going to meet your business needs within the S/4HANA Cloud. But if it doesn't, if you have like a lot of third-party external systems, legacy systems, maybe it has a lot of old data in it, a lot of valuable data, SAP provides an SAP Analytics Cloud that you could push the data or interface that data into the SAP Analytics Cloud, and then you could do the whole, it's called side-by-side extensibility, where you could actually, within this S/4HANA Analytics Cloud, you could actually start building your analytics, your depictions, your relationships, your graphical type of representations, your graphical developments. You could build that within the cloud. And, of course, the SAP Analytics Cloud and your core SAP S/4HANA Cloud, it seamlessly interacts back and forth. So you could consume the apps or your new apps that are developed in the SAP Analytics Cloud. You can consume these seamlessly within the S/4HANA and HANA Cloud as needed. Like I said, they're both SAP native products. The presentation isn't to go into this, but it's just worth mentioning that you have that flexibility to use side-by-side cloud extensibility to do analytics that you can't do directly within the S/4HANA Cloud. All right, so that 40, it looks like I'm about 41 minutes after the hour. Wrap up. Let me just spend a couple minutes. Key takeaways. I just want you to take away the online transactional processing, your online analytical processing. I can't overemphasize this enough. It's all within the S/4HANA Cloud. I mean, this is, as I was mentioning, significant. No more external business warehouses. No more external third-party tools. Not to say, if you have a huge company, you aren't going to still need that for something, but you have now the ability, once you get up and running, once you get everything embedded within the S/4HANA Cloud, you have the ability to do both of those in the same instance. I think that's a massive value driver. It could, you hear the buzzword total cost of ownership. It could lower total cost of ownership, simplify your IT structure, simplify your platform. SAP is supporting the whole, like I said, the whole service. I can't emphasize that more. Real time. You're only constrained by your imagination now. So you get the real time analysis, and my gosh, like I was talking before, you could, create the whole your cache. You could understand your cache, where it's coming from, and hopefully get that cash in the door as quick as possible. As we all hear, cash is king. Getting that cash in the door and figuring out how to put that cash to work, whether it's through investing within your company, investing in whoever. Getting that cash in the door is huge. The last thing is the whole digital transformation. Companies, we live in a digital world, and it's getting even more and more connected, whether it's through devices, whether it's through sensors, whether it's through, like I was mentioning, the Internet of Things. And this is ultimately going to lead to wanting to understand your business and your solution even better. And like I said, I read all this really powerful stuff about artificial intelligence and the deep learning. This is all coming into play. Just think long term, your whole digital transformation. It's going to take all that information and connect it, and then you're going to be able to hopefully apply some type of algorithms to get smarter on the data, to where it's going to learn from how people use the data, how people imagine the data. But I'm just thinking of how I always try to think of how a customer can use that digital transformation to to get smarter with the data and apply. Ultimately, I believe that artificial intelligence is really, over the next 3 to 5 years, is going to be huge in how people use this data for their digital transformation. That's my key takeaways. Think about, but I believe this S/4HANA Cloud is going to enable you to explore all that. Okay, well, that's all I had. So let's go to the next part.
All right, so I want to thank Anthony for the presentation. Before we get to the questions, we have a number of questions. Just want to ask a couple poll questions to wrap this up. Are you currently using any line of business cloud solutions? SuccessFactors, Concur, Hybris, or other? If you are using other, you can feel free to type that in the chat box. And going back, I noticed a couple of you are having some audio difficulties. Don't worry, you will be receiving a fully edited copy of the video. So if you missed anything, we will be following up with with an edited copy. And you may have noticed in the chat box that we'd like to receive our quarterly S/4HANA Cloud newsletter with updates, best practices, and thought leadership pieces, as well as case studies. Just type S4 into the chat box, and we will make sure you get signed up. And then finally, the big question, would you like some more information on S/4HANA Cloud? And we'd be happy to send you some more information in addition to the newsletter, but where you can actually talk to some of our practice leads on that. We have a number of people asking for that, yes. Give you a couple more seconds to fill that out. All right, great. So let's wrap this up with a little bit of Q&A. Obviously, all these questions are directed to Anthony. Gerald writes in, does two-tier make sense with S/4HANA Cloud?
It does. So we think of the two-tier. So when I think we talk about two-tier, for example, I'll use SAP. You're running like SAP ERP system, like an ECC type of 6.0 environment, and then you have the S/4HANA Cloud as your other tier. Yeah, the whole idea is you can run both those tiers simultaneously, and still, yeah, absolutely. For example, you might have an international parent, a big international company. They could still, for maybe the main entity or entities, they could still run that tier 1 ECC environment or some other ERP environment, and then you can maybe have a subsidiary as a tier 2 on the S/4HANA Cloud. So absolutely, yeah, the whole premise is that tier 2 is totally supported and encouraged.
All right, great. And Dina writes in, how long does a typical implementation usually take for S4HANA?
Yeah, so the idea is with the S/4HANA Cloud is it's based on SAP best practices. They've taken 40-plus years of experience and built the best practices package into the software. Plus, you get all this, like I said, all this powerful analytical processing in there. But to answer this question, certainly it depends on the scope of your project. But I would say in a typical implementation, I would say 16 weeks, probably on average, give or take maybe 3 or 4 weeks, plus or minus.
Okay. James asks, what functionality in S4HANA fills the need for pixel-perfect reporting, which Crystal reports in the BobJ suite currently fills?
Yeah, so Crystal reports, I would say, so here's the thing is, so we didn't talk about this, but you still have a lot of transactional processing apps, report apps. So for example, we didn't talk about this, but like a trial balance or a GL line item or some type of transactional, you still have a lot of those reports. They're now applications. I hope I'm kind of answering this, but you still have the transactional processing apps that can still meet a lot of your core reporting needs. In addition, obviously, to these analytical apps that we talked about today. So I think I'm probably answering it somewhat. But yeah, there's a whole slew of, like I said, transactional reports that I didn't even touch on that can meet probably your needs. These analytics apps, think of KPI. So you did mention BobJ. I believe, especially some of these overview apps, yeah, I believe they could probably replace a lot of the BobJ, certainly in a lot of respects. Totally, who knows for sure without knowing the requirements. But yeah, the whole idea is that yeah, you could replace like a BobJ or a ClickView or a Tableau potentially with a lot of these embedded analytics apps. Hopefully I kind of answered that question.
Great. And Phil asks, are there any analytics that will help me improve my cash collection?
Yeah, I mean, I have the accounting background, and I've worked with CFOs and controllers over the years. And the big thing is you have to bring that cash in the door as quick as possible. So certainly, yeah, there's a lot of key apps that enable you to look at sales volume, but then equate that back to what your customers owe you, customer receivables, and then a lot of that embedded into understanding what your receivables are, but also there's a lot of key apps, KPI apps to enable you to do cash collections in a much more instantaneous, quicker fashion. Because, yeah, I mean, collecting that cash is huge. Can't overemphasize that. But yeah, ton on customers, receivables, and cash collections, absolutely.
All right, great. If we don't have any other questions, looks like we're going to wrap it up. Anthony, I want to thank you very much for the presentation. Again, everybody will be receiving a fully edited copy of the video. On your way out, you'll notice a comment section. We'd love to hear what you thought about the presentation and what you'd also like us to cover in the future. Feel free to fill that out, as it gives us more information as to how we plan out our season. And if there are no more questions, again, I want to thank everybody who joined us. And again, Anthony, thank you very much. And everybody have a great weekend.